Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this Blitz chess postmortem, a postmortem of my Blitz game number 489. I had the black pieces. My opponent played d4, and I decided to go for a Grunfeld if allowed, so I go knight f6, c4, g6. This g6 move can introduce either the Grunfeld or the King's Indian or other systems too, but those are the main ones. g3, so white indicates that he wants a fianchetto setup. And, well, at this point I changed my mind. I could still be sort of non-committal just by going bishop g7. I still have the option of playing either d5 or d6 at a later point. But I decided when I saw the fianchetto to go for a King's Indian setup, so I just play d6 instead. I mean, the reason is I'm a little more familiar with the King's Indian fianchetto setups with white against the King's Indian, just because that was played so much in the Zurich tournament, so I've seen a lot of games with that in it. And whereas with the Grunfeld against the fianchetto setup, I'm just not as familiar. So, well, we're a little bit out of normal theory because of the way the move order went. And then he plays e4. And this looks like a typical King's Indian position, and I push on with e5. But I could also play c5 here. Might be an interesting way to play. Or I could continue to delay deciding what to do in the center and just castle. But I pushed on with e5. And now e5 maybe is a mistake, because this is one of those positions where white can take here and exchange queens and have a slight edge. So probably, yeah, the chess engine was suggesting maybe knight to d7 would be a good way to prepare e5, although in that case you get a very passive kind of setup. So maybe castling, as indicated by the opening book, is the best way to play this. And the advantage of castling is that after you've castled, then these moves d5 and the trade of queens don't have any effect because it just pulls a rook over here. So that sort of prepares, castling sort of prepares the move e5. Anyway, I played e5 immediately. He goes knight e2 instead of taking. And it's interesting, cancel that knight e2, the other knight. It's interesting that the chess engine evaluation swings back and forth. Basically, the chess engine thinks that white should be playing d5 or taking, and that I shouldn't have been, and also that I should take when I get the chance. You see, I don't play the move the engine is recommending. So the evaluation keeps swinging back and forth because neither of us are resolving the situation in the center, but are leaving the tension there, and the engine is saying, no, you guys should settle this. White should push on, and black should exchange. Let's see, I played knight c6, and once again, d5 would be a typical King's Indian sort of idea, chasing my knight back here. But I have later ideas of moving this knight out of the way and pushing on with f4. So typical King's Indian play. But my opponent is avoiding that. We both castle here. He castles. I castle. Once again, he should play d5 here, but he plays a3. And now it occurs to me that actually this is a good time for me to take. It would have been good for me to take earlier. And a lot of times white, I mean, that's one of the reasons why white pushes on with d5 is to prevent black from taking on d4 here. It's opens up this diagonal for the dark squared bishop, so it's kind of a desirable move from black's point of view. And the evaluation shifts in black's favor when I finally hit on that idea and take the pawn. So we get one trade here, and I should probably continue trading just to try and clear out this diagonal a little bit and get the bishop closer to making some threats on the rook or generating pressure on the b-pawn. Instead, I decided to avoid trades with knight e5. Later, this knight becomes a bit of a target here, so maybe not the best way to play. But it does put some pressure on the c-pawn. White defends with b3. And you see we got about an even position, so nothing really horrible has happened here. Oh, let's see, it's my turn here. I play bishop to g4. Maybe not the most accurate. It provokes f3. Keeps his bishop closed in behind the pawns for a while here anyway. But it does give white a pretty solid center, and white can still play the freeing move f4 and e5 at some later point, so it hasn't really accomplished a whole lot. Drop the bishop back, and he plays knight to c3. So now I have the idea of lining up with the queen and bishop and trading off his light squared bishop before it becomes a menace. Which it eventually will, so it's not a bad plan, but, well, black is doing pretty well. He plays his bishop to e3. White is doing pretty well, I mean. I play bishop h3, so I just have wasted a couple of moves, I guess, with the bishop going back and forth. And he goes knight d5. That's always a interesting move for white to play when he can get away with it. When I either chase that knight away with a move like c6, it creates a weakness on d6, or if I trade, then he can take back with a pawn and create a backwards c-pawn. But in this case, the trade is okay, because I can play the move c5 immediately. Let's see, well, I threw in bishop takes, king takes. So I get rid of the light squared bishop, then I play this move c5, so that I won't always have this backwards c-pawn. He trades, and I take back. And now these pawns are a bit of a target, so I have to take some care in babysitting them. But with proper play, this should be okay. So I've mounted a successful defense so far. But white spots the weakness here and starts putting pressure on the c-pawn. I play queen b7, getting out of that pin and preparing to bring a rook over to defend. All good. He plays f4, and here I make a mistake. I just moved the knight away. The knight's needed to defend this pawn, so I realized that I was losing a pawn here, but I didn't see a good alternative. But there is a good alternative, which is the counterattack. Always keep those counterattacking moves in mind. So he's attacked my knight, I've attacked his knight, and let's see, if we both execute our threats, which is the chess engine recommendation, he takes my knight, I take his knight, and then he plays queen takes d4. He has a choice. He could also take on he could also take here, but then I grab this pawn with check, so maybe that's pretty good for me. Yeah, it looks like it picks up the bishop. So he plays queen takes, defending his bishop, defending the pawn, and then I play queen takes b3. I grab this pawn over here, and taking advantage of this pin, the queen, in order to defend things. Oops, that was a bad arrow. Has walked into this pin with the bishop, so he can't immediately take back, and it looks like I come out okay. So it's a bit of a complicated sequence, but in a critical situation like this, rather than meekly giving up the pawn, I should really have researched that. I should have done the calculations on that c5 move, the counterattack. Okay, so I played knight d5, and he gets an edge here, although I get back in the game because of some inaccurate moves later. Right now I'm noticing some pressure on the d6 pawn. Let's see. Once again, the chess engine is suggesting best moves here involve counterattack, so rook to e8, putting pressure on the e-pawn here, and maybe letting this pawn go. Of course, if the queen ever takes there, I can take the b-pawn. That's another pawn that's loose here, so it's not an immediate worry that I have that he's going to take that pawn. This move is a bit of a mistake, though. Knight c5, I was counterattacking, so I had some ideas. He could probably take the knight and trade. But queen d5, I guess this is a move I didn't really think about. Queen d5 is a nice move. That's right, if we back up, the reason why he can't take right away is because I can take his knight. And I think that comes out okay for me. The queen can escape by taking on here with check, so I don't have to worry about tempos with the knight. With his bishop. So what I mean is after bishop takes knight, queen takes knight, he could move his bishop and threaten my queen with the rook, but I have queen takes pawn here, check. So all that would be okay, but this move queen d5 is a move I overlooked. It defends his knight and still threatens to take these pawns, and he's got quite a strong advantage. The queen from d5 even continues to defend the b6 pawn, so that's a great move from white. So my opponent missed that and played instead knight b4, just moving his knight away so it's not under threat. And now I'm back in the game, and in fact I play one of the good moves here. I played queen takes e4. Maybe knight takes e4 was even a little bit stronger, but queen takes e4 is good enough for to maintain even game here. So after that little mishap, I've kind of recovered and gotten back in the game, and I play knight takes b3 here. I'm even a pawn up at the moment, although this is a weak pawn, so it's hard to hold on to. You see, it's not a full one pawn advantage for black, but just a slight edge to black here. But definitely I survived my difficulties. So let's see, he played rook c to d1, targeting my d-pawn. I should really, I end up losing this a-pawn. I should really throw in a5 right now, getting the pawn away from the glare of his bishop and gaining a tempo on his knight. So a5 is the move here. I played rook f to d8, So just defending my pawn. Not the most accurate move, but still keeping the game in a range of about even. He plays rook d5, a nice move. Keeps me from ever moving this pawn forward. And now I played rook a to c8, which is still good, although it gives up this pawn. I just didn't take advantage of it. I mean, the idea of the rook to c8 is to penetrate here with the rook and start harassing his king, and for some reason I didn't follow through on this idea. I had this idea that his bishop, let's erase that one, his bishop was somewhat active over here, and I was going to try and block it in with my knight. It's just not a good idea. I'm just better to play actively myself and not worry about his bishop. So anyway, I play this knight here, hoping to provoke some kind of trade and getting rid of this piece. He goes rook f to d1, just doubling down, piling up the pressure on my pawn. And right here I make the mistake that loses the game. So I'm still in the game with a move like knight e6. Knight e6 is good. It gives up this pawn, but there's some really neat tactics here, actually. If he takes the pawn, which is not recommended, then I throw in this check. And if he blocks, one point is that if he blocks with this knight, rook, if he blocks with this rook, I can take the other rook because now that rook is pinned, so that's out. If he blocks with this rook, then I can take the pawn this way because this rook is pinned. If he takes my rook, I take his rook, and he can't take my rook down here because it's pinned this way. So there's all these pins operating with the rooks. So after rook takes d6, actually rook back to d3 is the best try here. What if he just moves his king? Then I trade, and I guess I picked up a pawn, because at the end of all of this, I get the pawn on a3. So interesting, knight to e6, just giving up on that pawn. After knight e6, his best move is not even to take the pawn, but to play rook 1 to d3, protecting against this invasion, and then we have still a game that's about even. Kind of interesting. So I didn't spot that knight e6 idea, but it's a pretty nice move. It opens up the c-file for my rook and just kind of gets the knight out of the way and onto a square where it's defended, so there's no attacks from the white pieces against my knight. Okay, I played instead a losing move. I play the move rook d7, and this creates a pin. Now my rook is undefended here, and so he can just take the knight, which he does, and then he finishes off the game really well here, so he doesn't make any more mistakes. So I'll just go through this kind of quickly. He stays a piece up, and you know, I tried grabbing a couple pieces for the rook, so he's just up the exchange now, but he simplifies, and he gets this outside passed pawn, and now he just takes the remaining pieces off. Let's see, I go after the pawn, but he throws in this check, and after a couple of more exchanges, he even, well, he plays b5 first, so I try to unpin my bishop, and now he just takes the bishop off. And with no more pieces on the board, this is an easily winning endgame. I'm outside the square of that pawn, so he went ahead with b6, and then I resigned. Nice game by White there. Some inaccuracies along the way, but he finished that off in style. So hope you guys enjoyed it. Leave any comments you have in the section below, and I will see you again soon. Bye.